It's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, a few days after returning home from a 15-day trip on a Mediterranean cruise on Viking cruise lines, and I have the international flight standing in cattle lines to go through security crud that you normally get coming home after a long trip. Which means I have a face like a diseased photo tripper, Gavin Hardcastle himself. Hey, welcome to another video. I'm going to do a more extensive one later on when I'm feeling a little bit better. And unfortunately, I have to jump back on another airplane and go to an out-of-town wedding in just a couple of days. So I'm hoping to feel a little bit better before we do that. And then when I get back, I'll finish going through my images. But I did want to make almost a follow-up to the last video I made right before I went away, and where I was talking about what lenses I was thinking about taking and not taking. Now, I went on an ocean cruise on Viking, which is very different than the Viking river cruises, which I won't get into all that much in this video. But it made me think differently as to what lenses I might want to take because of the areas we were going to visit. And for followers of my channel, you know that when I travel, my number one lens is a Nikon 24-120 f4 lens. I use that lens quite extensively for landscapes, for travel photos. But on this trip I didn't take it. I was hedging all the way up until the last minute when I was finishing up packing my camera bag. And one of the reasons why, quite frankly, was I wanted to challenge myself to see if I could go with one or two lenses and one camera body, my Nikon Z8, and see if I would get different types of images. I ended up taking the Thypoch 28 Samara lens for the Nikon, the 1.4 lens, and I took the Voigtlander 50mm f2 Apo. For people who may not be familiar with those two lenses, both of them are manual focus lenses. I didn't even take an autofocus lens with me. Did I miss shots because of it? Yes, I did. Do I regret it? I'd have to think about it a little bit longer, but I don't think so. And one of the reasons why I say that is because whenever I come home from a trip where I've taken some photos, I'm never satisfied. I'm just never satisfied. So even had I taken it and I'd gotten a few that I think got away from me, I still wouldn't have been satisfied. So I took a Wandered 9-liter sling bag with me. I took the Nikon Z8 and those two lenses. And I would say 70% of the times I used the 50mm focal length just because I'm more familiar with it and I've used it quite a bit more than a 28. I'm starting to learn how to use a 28 a little bit better. And yes, there is a learning process to it. Don't think there's not. To really learn how to use these lenses, you have to use them. You have to figure out what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. There were a couple of times I had the 28 on the camera body and I wished I had had the 50. So I'd say, or maybe the 50, and I wished I'd had the 28. So I'd say I had more, not grievances, but I probably didn't get the shot I want, maybe because I didn't have the lens on there I wanted, or if I had the 24-120, boop, you just zoom in and out and you get the shot, but at f4. Now granted, a lot of times I was using f5, 6, f8 anyway, but still, I don't want to call it a crutch, but I didn't want to rely on that zoom. I really wanted to work the images. That was one of my goals on this trip. And what I found out was it forced me to take completely different types of images than what I had anticipated in taking. And I don't want to say it forced me to be a better photographer, but maybe it did. Because a lot of the images that I'm starting to review, again, are far different than what I had anticipated. And again, yes, I missed some because they were manual focus. But I'm going to show you this image here in Venice, which was taken from a moving ship, boat. Wasn't moving that fast, but it was moving at a decent clip, and I had a manual focus lens. So it proves you can do it. Now what I did was I just bumped the ISO so I could still use F8, F5.6, I think, whatever I used. I think I was using F5.6. And I still had a very fast shutter speed. And that's how I got it to be as sharp as it is. And so I don't regret only having manual focus lenses, but there were times I wish I had that 120 millimeter length, and even the 70 to 300 lens. I missed that a few times. But did I miss them enough to carry all that extra weight in a bigger bag? No. Because when you go on these cruise trips like this, you get rushed around in guided tours for the most part. You can go off on your own, and we did do that a little bit. But to a large extent, you're on a guided tour and you're kind of at the mercy of how fast or how slow that guide is taking you. For example, when we were in Barcelona, which I loved Barcelona, I really hadn't done a whole lot of research on it. I had heard from other people saying that I would really love Barcelona. You can't see it in a half a day, which is what we did. I mean, obviously you need several days. But the parts that we did see, we drove all around the town on the bus. Viking took us on. And then we had a walking tour for a couple hours. But what I loved was the music of the town, how many street musicians were all around. Well, when you're on a guided tour, he's there pointing at buildings and giving you a little history on the building, and I'm 10 yards away trying to get a picture of a musician, street musician, and then they start taking off, and I got to turn around, and my wife's looking for me, and I'm looking for them, and you know, so it's far different than being able to go at your own pace. So I can't say at that disadvantage either, but again, it made me really practice looking for compositions quickly, focusing quickly, and trying to get a shot. And I think that helped me improve my photography to some degree. And again, also the images I took were very different. Anyway, I'll do a longer video with some more images once I get through them all and I'm feeling a little bit better, but I did want to just post one video because I haven't posted one in a while. I'll let you know I'm still around. I haven't given up on the channel. I just haven't been feeling well. If I've had this cold before I even went away, and then it went away while I was on the ship, I actually was feeling pretty good, other than being super tired from all the walking we were doing and carrying that bag around. And then as soon as I got home, I got sick again from, I'm pretty sure it was that last flight. We're going through the Barcelona and then coming through Dulles in DC. Anyway, I did only use 2 manual focus lenses, and what I learned was that if I had to, I could take a whole trip with just a 50mm lens, or maybe a 28mm lens if I was better at it. I'd probably prefer the 50 just because of the reach, but there were times in alleyways and things like that, and the canals of Venice, you really needed a 28. You really needed maybe even a 24 or 20, but 28 did suffice. But I hope you're well, and look for another video pretty soon, and I'll tell you more about the trip we were on and a little bit about Viking, other than the fact that this is our 3rd trip on Viking, and I will tell you, yes, they're more expensive, no question about it, but they do give you the value, in my opinion. They're first class all the way. They're a well-run organization. Their employees are excellent. Every trip we've been on, their staff has just been as good as you could possibly expect from employees of, waiters and waitresses and people making food for you, and the people that clean your rooms. You couldn't ask for better service. The guides are usually very good. Some are better than others, but for the most part, the guides they use are very good. The bus drivers are excellent, going through the streets of Rome and things like that, which is tough sledding for any bus driver. Anyway, more about that in a future video. Take care, and I'll see you soon.